guys, welcome to another video. I just kind of wanted to show off a little bit how to get started on Phasmo as a new player. When you're first starting out, you're going to start out on amateur on Tanglewood Drive with basic equipment. So we're just going to go in and see what happens. The first thing to notice is that you're going to have a 5-minute setup timer here. That timer starts going down as soon as you enter the front door. So you can spend as much time in here figuring out what you need to do, getting your equipment. You don't have to rush out of the truck, but as soon as you step into that front door, your timer will start going down. All right, so we see that we have Shelly Rhodes. She responds to everyone, which means that multiple people can be in the room when you're trying to do a spirit box. In the later difficulties, it won't tell you what it responds to. It's always best, in my experience, to just be alone in the room. The objectives that we have are to cleanse the area near the ghost using an incense, find evidence of the paranormal with an EMF reader, and detect a ghost presence with a motion sensor. We do not have incense and we don't have a motion sensor yet, so we won't be able to do these two objectives, but we should be able to find evidence of the paranormal with an EMF reader. This right here is going to be your EMF reader. You can see that has levels for 2, 3, 4, and 5. A 2 is always going to be an interaction. A 3 is going to be a throw. A 4 is going to be a ghost event. And any of the other numbers have a chance to become a 5 if it is an EMF 5 ghost. The first things I usually like to bring in on these is going to be a flashlight, an EMF reader, and your thermometer. Your thermometer helps you locate the ghost room a little bit easier. You can see on here the red line will go up or down depending on whether the room is getting warmer or colder. The ghost room is always going to be the coldest room in the house. I like to bring the EMF reader on these so that you can see what the ghost is interacting with. And it will kind of show you how I walk through the house as we're going through. And like I said before, just make sure that you know that as soon as you unlock this door, your timer is going to start. You can also have your flashlight on while you have other things active, but make sure that you're turning the flashlight off if the ghost does hunt you. In this game mode, you should be able to get in and out and figure out what the ghost is before the ghost has a chance to hunt you. Also, it's important to note that on amateur, the fuse box starts on, so you can start turning lights on right away, but make sure you don't cut the power by turning on too many lights. So just be mindful of how many lights you're turning on. The first thing I like to do is just start going through the rooms. You're looking for the bone and a cursed object, and you're also checking the temperatures. On amateur, you have most of the hiding spots, but always just be sure that you know where your hiding spots are going to be. The closets work as great hiding spots on Tanglewood, but just be aware that you have to be paying attention during a hunt. You have to have all of your electronics off, and the ghost can come through and open the doors slightly. If it does open the doors slightly, it will be able to see you, so you need to be able to close the door quickly. If we had a camera, we would take a picture of the bone and then pick it up. We don't have a camera, so we're just picking it up. I did hear a door touch, so I'm going to look around for any doors that might be open. It looks like it's probably in this room. Also, make sure your EMF reader is on when you're trying to use it, because if it's not on, you're not going to get any EMF readings. I like to just throw my flashlight where I'm going to possibly need it. As you can see, the temperature is starting to go down in here, so I'm just going to drop my thermometer and head back out to the truck and get our equipment. The next thing I'll usually bring in is my video camera, my dots pen, and a UV. We did hear it touching a lot of doors, so it's important to check for UV to see if we get fingies. I always tend to put my camera in night vision mode because it's an easy way to find orbs. I don't see any currently, but we're going to keep looking around. Sometimes they can appear in side rooms. And sometimes they can also appear close to the wall on adjacent rooms. So I always just kind of look and make sure that they're not there. And then you can set up your camera wherever you'd like to give you a good view of the room. I'm going to put mine there. And then I'm also going to take my dots pen and I can place that next to it. So we can get a good view of our dots. You can see your breath in here. That only indicates that it is below 5 degrees. It does not indicate that it is freezing yet. So it's a good idea to just look for breath, but don't count it as freezing yet. The ghost can knock on these windows and leave fingerprints. It can also leave fingers on doors and on light switches. There are other objects in other maps that the ghost can leave fingerprints on. One good item, actually, to have around is the remote. The ghost can leave fingerprints on the remote as well. So if you're in a room that doesn't have a lot of things that it can leave fingerprints on, you can bring a remote. So far, I don't see any fingerprints on anything. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop it here. So it'll shine on that door. Check for freezing. It's getting kind of low, but it's not quite freezing yet. We still have a couple more pieces of equipment in the van, so let's go back and get it. And check our sanity, and we can see that we are at about 90%. That could be an EMF 5 right there. You can see it starts at the 2 and goes up to the 7, but just keep in mind that these can also be multiple things happening at the same time. So if it does 2 EMF events at the same time, it could show up as a high number. Also keep in mind that the total activity board shows interactions and activity plus or minus 1 of what it actually is. So this one right here, it shows up as a 4, which would be normally a ghost event, but it could be an EMF 5 or it could be an EMF 3. It cannot be a ghost event currently because we are the only one here and we are not in the house, and the ghost will only event on somebody if there is somebody in the house to event on. Our timer is up, so the ghost can hunt at any time, but most ghosts don't start hunting until your sanity is much lower. This right here definitely makes me think that we have an EMF 5 ghost, especially seeing it so frequently, but I always like to go in and confirm it myself. We're going to take these things in and place it down. Make sure you're placing your items and not just throwing them. And then this is still the ghost room, so I am going to talk in the spirit box. I currently have it set up for text. If you are on console, that's going to be your only option because voice recognition doesn't quite work. You can change this setting in here. Voice recognition mode is set to text. I tend to check in multiple different rooms nearby. Just make sure the lights are off. Otherwise the ghost won't respond. The range on this is a little bit lower, so you may have to ask a couple of times. Walk around. If you see the ghost doing something, whether it's a ghost event, it's walking through dots, it's throwing something, you can walk up to where it is and you can ask. Here we see we have an EMF 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to the truck. It's broken the breaker again, which is unfortunate, and we're going to go put in our evidence. I tend to not like to put in evidence in the ghost room just to be more safe. I either make sure I'm in a safe spot or I go outside. So we have EMF 5 and we have ultraviolet, so we know it can only be a myling, an obake, a goryo, or a jinn. There are some ways to figure out a ghost without getting the evidence. For instance, we know it won't be a jinn because it has turned off the breaker. A jinn will never turn off the breaker because it uses the breaker to empower itself. A goryo is a dots ghost, and one thing about the goryo, a goryo will never show its dots in person. You have to see it through a video camera, and you also have to see it when nobody is in the room. We can sit here and watch for a little bit and see if we end up seeing dots. Sometimes things like freezing and dots take a while to show up, especially for some reason goryo dots seem to take the longest. I don't know if that's just because you can't see them in person, so it just feels like they take longer. You kind of just have to get it at the right moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back in. We have 70% sanity. The ghosts here will not hunt you at 70% sanity, so you're pretty safe to go back in. If you're more comfortable with it, you can take your flashlight and go down to the basement and turn your power back on. We see that our ghostwriting book has been thrown. So what I want to do is I want to place it again and make sure that the pen is still there. The pen is there, it means it hasn't written in it. Sometimes the ghost can interact with the book for the first time and write in it, and then interact with it again for the second time and throw it. So I always like to double check and make sure if it's thrown, it means it's not ghostwriting, but I always like to make sure that it wasn't written in first. So we know right now that it cannot be ghostwriting. So now we have either Onobake or Goryo. I'm going to reposition my camera and my dots just so I can see if I can get a better angle. The ghost is interacting a lot in the bathroom. So I'm actually going to go ahead and place these in here. And also we know that our final piece of evidence is going to be either ghost orbs or dots. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to look for ghost orbs. I do not see any currently. Okay, I went back in and I repositioned my dots again to see if maybe I can get it to show up this time. And now we're just going to sit here and kind of wait because our sanity is a little bit low and we want to be safe. The most important things in these runs is to not put yourself in a position where you could die. Sometimes that can't be helped.
The next day.
Alright, so there we saw the dots. We know now it's 100% a Goryo. Sometimes it just takes time, but we want to get out of here now and move on to the next room. Just remember, the most important things are finding the ghost room, figuring out the ghost, and getting out without losing too much sanity. And most of all, have fun. I'll see you soon.